met an old woman a plucking young nettles, but she ne'er saw me coming. I listened a while to the song she was humming. Glory, oh, glory, oh, to the bold Fenian men. 'Tis 50 long years since I saw the moon beaming on strong manly form, with eyes with hope gleaming. I'll see them again in all my sad dreaming. Glory, oh, to the bold Fenian men. When I was a young girl, they're marching and drilling. I woke on the glen side, sounds awesome and thrilling. They loved dear old Ireland, and to die they were willing. Glory, oh, to the bold Fenian men. I passed on my way, God be praised that I met her, be life long or short, sure I'll never forget her. We may have brave men, but we'll never have better. Glory, oh, to the bold Fenian men.
Thank you, Erin, for that. She accompanied us also. And our next, I was going to say competitor, this is not a competition here. Our next artist tonight is Sarah Doyle, Sarah from Edgerton, and she's also takes part in score and in the County Fair and the community games, and she's going to recite Erin go Brown.
They're Around the Town by Father Carney. I'll sing you a song of the round the town, when the green flag went up and the crown rag came down. When it was the neatest and sweetest thing you saw, and they played the best game played in Éireann go Brawl. 1,000 young men now, of every degree, with their rifles and shotguns, well, they swore to be free. And on one fine Easter Sunday, well, they laughed at the law, and they played the best game played in Éireann go Brawl. Well, God rest Gallen Pierce and his comrades who died, Tom Clark, MacDonagh, McDermott and McBride. And here's to James Conley, who gave one hurrah as he faced his machine guns for Éireann go Brawl. Brave Kenneth and his comrades, like lions at bay, from the South Dublin Union, poured death and dismay. And what was the wrath when those Englishmen saw all the dead Caithfí soldiers in Éireann go Brawl? A young De Valera was down at Ring's End for the honour of Ireland to hold and defend. Well, he had no veteran soldiers, but volunteers raw, playing sweet Mauser music for Éireann go Brawl. Well, a brave English captain was raging that day, saying, "Give me an hour and I'll blow them away." But a big Mauser bullet got stuck in his craw, and he died of lead poisoning in Éireann go Brawl. Well, all glory to Dublin, to hers the renown. Through the long generations, her name will go down, and her children will tell how her forefathers saw the red blaze of freedom in Éireann go Bragh.
Thanks to Sarah. And we also thank Pauline Flood from Edgeworthstown for arranging the girls to come, and also to their parents. I suppose the great thing for us tonight is to experience this aspect of life, the girls and many of the participants. We wouldn't normally, I certainly wouldn't normally get a chance to see them, because some of us wouldn't normally be going to the score competitions and so on. So it's a wonderful opportunity for those of us in Louth Historical Society to see that aspect of it. Now, our third artist tonight is one of our committee of Louth Historical Society, our recording secretary, Vera Kiernan. And Vera we're grateful to Kiernan, grateful to Vera, who actually suggested the idea of this evening. It was an idea from many months ago, and I know she's very proud to be here tonight to take part in it herself. And we thought it was most appropriate that she, who thought up the idea, should represent us tonight. So Vera Kiernan.
Thanks, Father Tom, for that introduction, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the piece I'm going to do with you is about the life and times of Thomas MacDonagh, as brief, and also about Francis Ledwidge. Now, one might say, well, what has Francis Ledwidge got to do with it? But as according as I read the piece, you also understand. I'm sure some of you are well aware of Francis Ledwidge. Now, as well as a revolutionary leader, Thomas MacDonagh was a poet, playwright and educationalist. He was born in Cloughjordan, County Tipperary, and grew up in a family whose home was filled with music, poetry and learning. Both his parents were teachers, and it wasn't surprising that Thomas also became a teacher. He taught in St. Mary's College in Kenny and was employed as a professor of French, English and Latin at St. Coleman's College in Fermoy in County Cork. It was while he was in Fermoy that he's one of the founders of the Teachers' Trade Union ASTI, Association of Secondary Teachers in Ireland. He was well known in literary circles. He was editor of the Irish Review, a literary periodical, and he published his first book of poetry, Through the Ivory Gate, in 1902. His love of Irish prompted him to join the staff of Patrick Pearse's St. Edmund's School when it was established in 1908. He was the first teacher to be given a position in the school. In 1910, he was a tutor to a younger member of the Gaelic League, Joseph Plunkett, and they became firm friends. Both were poets and shared an interest in the Irish theatre. In 1913, MacDonagh and Plunkett attended the inaugural meeting of the Irish Volunteers and joined its provisional committee. MacDonagh subsequently became Commandant of Dublin's 2nd Battalion and later was made Commandant of the whole Dublin Brigade. MacDonagh married Muriel Gifford, whose sister Grace later married Joseph Plunkett in Kilmainham Jail. MacDonagh was originally a constitutionalist, but he later embraced stronger Republican beliefs and joined the Irish Republican Brotherhood around 1915. He only became a member of the secret military council that planned the rising weeks before it took place. During the rising, his rebellion was located at Jacob's biscuit factory. However, they didn't see a great deal of fighting because the British Army set up their positions in central Dublin. After the surrender, MacDonagh was court-martialed and executed by firing squad on the 3rd of May 1916. He was aged 38. He was commemorated in a memorable poem by Francis Ledwidge. Now, Francis Ledwidge was born, let's just be brief about Francis Ledwidge, was born in 1908 in Janesville, Slane, County Meath. He was the 8th of 9 children born to Patrick and Anna. His father, a farm labourer, died when Francis was 4 years old. His mother worked for a meagre 8 shillings a week to help rear the family. Francis left school at 13 years old and worked as a casual worker in several positions. In 1906, Francis became the founder member of the Meath Labour Union, and in 1913 he became the Slaves Corps volunteer movement in 1913. Now he was a political activist as well as writing poetry. When not working, he immersed himself in history and writing poetry. His schoolmaster, Mr. Thomas Madden, described him as an erratic genius. He had works and writings published in the Drogheda Independent. He was greatly befriended by the aristocrat Lord Unseri, and Lord Unseri had battalions in the fighting at that time in the 1914-18 war. Now, he advised him not to join, not to enlist, but he did enlist for some reason or other. Some says it was because maybe of broken romance, maybe because it wasn't his impoverished background or his venture. But by his writings, he was a pacifist and a naturalist and a realist. And in 1950, that's when he was in the British Army. So sadly, on the 31st of July, in 1917, he was killed in Belgium. Now, he wrote this famous poem about Thomas MacDonagh, and this is how it reads. A lament for Thomas MacDonagh. He shall not hear the bittern cry in the wild sky where he is lain, nor voices of the sweeter birds above the wailing of the rain. Nor shall he know when the loud March blows through slanting snows her fanfare shrill, blow into flame the golden cup of many an upset daffodil. But when the dark cow leaves the moor and pastures poor with green weeds, perhaps he'll hear her Lord mourning, lifting her horn in pleasant meads. Now, when he speaks about the dark cow, he's not speaking about the cows in the fields, because in my research it said that in the 18th century, Ireland was known as the dark cow. Now, Francis Ledwidge also, this is just the last little poem now, that I don't want to hold up. Now, this poem is written by Francis Ledwidge also, and because he was well aware of that time what was going on in Ireland, and it equates the two, the war and what was going on here really. And the poem is called Soliloquy, which is the Latin for sorrow, which means that people writing from their own deep thoughts and thinking, and things like this. When I was young, I had care, least should I cheat me of my chair, of what which makes it sweet to strive, for life and dying will survive. A name in sunshine written higher than lark or poet dare aspire. But I grew weary doing well, beside 'twas sweeter in that hell. Down with the loud banditti people who robbed the orchards, climbed the steeple. For jackdaws' eggs and made the cock, through air 'twas daylight in the clock. I was so very bad the neighbours spoke of me at their daily labours. Now this is the part that comes in about the wars and that. And now I'm drinking wine in France, the helpless child of circumstance. Tomorrow will be loud with war, how will I be accounted for? It's too late now to retrieve a fallen dream, too late to grieve. A name unmade but not too late, to thanks the gods for what is great. A keen-edged sword, a soldier's heart, is greater than a poet's art, and greater than a poet's fame, a little grave that has no name, whence honour turns away in shame. Thank you very
Again, thanks to Vera for introducing us to those two remarkable men, poets and writers, and men who wore a different uniform. We now welcome Aidan Dockery. Aidan is a numismatist, he's a philatelist, he's a bibliophile among many other things, collector of books and stamps and coins and so on. And he has an unrivaled collection of memorabilia and books and documents relating to 1916. And he's been pretty big. If any of you who have gone into a bookshop lately will realise what an expensive period he has had over the last few months because of the plethora of material which has been produced. So Aidan is going to, he's, as I say, an Edgerton native living in Rooski, winner of All Ireland score recitation competitions, and he's going to present 3 pieces to us tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a cause of great pride for me this evening to recite. Excuse me. We have it. To recite 3 pieces, 2 of which I'm doing for the very first time, so you'll forgive me if I'm a little bit nervous and unsure of myself, but I'll do my best anyway. The first piece I'm going to do is called The Rose Tree, and it was written by William Butler Yeats. And most of you will know that William Butler Yeats was very much opposed to the Rising when it actually broke out. But months later, following the executions and that, his attitude towards it changed. And that was due in no small way to the fact that so many writers and playwrights and actors had taken part and indeed been executed following the Rising. On Sunday I was in Dublin and I passed by the Abbey Theatre over the Rosie Hackett Bridge, and it just thought of Sean Connolly, the first volunteer to be shot in the Rising on Easter Monday. Yeats, as I say, changed his attitude towards the Rising totally, and then wrote that wonderful poem, Easter 1916, in which he said all had changed utterly. A terrible beauty was born. So he sat down one day and he just imagined the first time that James Connolly and Porrick Pierce had discussed an armed rebellion. And there seemed to be very, very little support for a rebellion at that stage, and they came to the conclusion that unless they were prepared to sacrifice their own blood, they were going nowhere. So this poem describes that conversation. It's called The Rose Tree. "Oh, words are lightly spoken," said Pierce to Connolly. "Maybe 'tis but a breath of politic words that has withered our rose tree, or some wind that blows across the bitter sea. It needs to be but watered," James Connolly replied, "to make the green come out again and spread on every side, and shake the blossom from the bud to be the garden's pride." "Ah, but where can we draw water?" said Pierce to Connolly, "when all the wells have parched away. Oh, plain as plain can be, there is nothing but our own red blood can make a right rose tree." The second piece I'm doing is simply called Connolly, and this is a Longford connection. It was written by a man who was born William Smith on Valentia Island off the Kerry coast, the home of Mick O'Connell, the great Kerry footballer. He was born there in 1908, and he was a teacher initially, and then he decided to change careers and become a journalist. And Eamon de Valera gave him a job as film critic with the Irish Press. And most of you will remember during the 60s and 70s a column appearing in the Longford Leader called Dublin Calling. Do you remember it? Yeah. I used to read it when I was a teenager in my 20s. Well, that was written by that William Smith, who at that stage had changed his name to Liam McGon. So you remember him now? Sorry?
He was in the Sunday World.
He actually was one of the founders of the Sunday World. He worked for the Irish Press for years, and then he switched over to the Irish Times, and then he ended up being one of the founding founders of the Sunday World. And during the 50s, he happened to hear an interview on the radio where the son of one of the firing squad who executed James Connolly had spoken about how remorseful his father had been. There were 12 in the firing squad who executed each of the 1916 leaders. And in Connolly's group, there was one man who was a miner from Wales but had been conscripted into the British Army because of the outbreak of the war. And he actually took part, as I say, in the shooting and execution of James Connolly. And when the war ended, he left the army and he went back to mining. And he started reading about some of these leaders who were executed during the Rising. And he realised that he had far more in common with James Connolly and his ideals about socialism and trade unionism and workers' rights. He had far more in common with James Connolly than he had with most of his colleagues in the British Army. And he came over specially in person and he apologised in person to the Connolly family, to James Connolly's widow, Lily, and all his children. And throughout his life, for the rest of his life, he really regretted having taken part in that firing squad. So Liam McGowan wrote this poem. It's a short poem called Connolly, and it reflects the thoughts and opinions of this Welshman. The man was all shot through that came today into the barrack square. And the soldier I am not proud to say we killed him there. They brought him from the prison hospital, and I swear to see him in that chair would far more quickly call a man to prayer. Now maybe I don't understand this thing that makes these rebels die. Yet all men love freedom and the spring clear in the sky. I wouldn't do this deed again for all that I hold by, as I gaze down my rifle at his breast. But then it's soldier I. They say he was different, kindly too, apart from all the rest. A lover of the poor, his wounds ill-dressed. He faced us like a man who knew a greater pain than blows or bullets ere the world began. Died he in vain? Ready! Present! And him just smiling. Christ, I felt my rifle shake. His wounds all open, and around his chair a pool of blood. And I swear his lips did say, fire, before my rifle shot that cursed lead. And I was forced to kill a man like that. James Connolly. The last piece I'm going to do is an extract from one of Sean O'Casey's autobiographies. Sean O'Casey wrote his autobiography in 4 different volumes, and the piece that I'm doing is from Drums Under the Windows. And you probably all know that Sean O'Casey, famous as a playwright, but he was also joint founder of the Irish Citizen Army with James Connolly. But he took no part in the Rising, was very much opposed to it. But afterwards, he thought and realised that an awful lot of innocent people had died during the Rising. And the latest figures, I think, from the Glasnevin Trust reveal that 485 people died during or as a direct result of the violence during the Easter Rising. And 254 of those 485, which equates to 55% of them, were innocent civilians. Ordinary men, women and children just caught up by accident in the Troubles. So this is his tribute to them. Incidentally, I had the great honour of reciting this in the GPO on the 24th of April last year, on the 99th anniversary of the Rising. And there were 5 people in the audience whose grandparents actually had taken part in the rising in the GPO. And among them also was Muriel Macaulay, who was a granddaughter of Thomas MacDonagh and Muriel Gifford. So I was very honoured. It was probably the biggest thrill in my life to be reciting it there. It was a rare time for death in Ireland. And in the battle's prologue, many a common man, woman and child had said goodbye to work, to love and to play. And many more in an hour or so would receive the terse message that life no longer needed them. There they are, lying so quiet. A child surprised in a doorway. An old man stretched in the street. A young man near a lamppost which he had clutched when the bullet struck him, and down which he had slid when he died. His curiously white face, containing wide eyes, staring upwards, as if asking the sky why this had to happen. A stiff arm still half encircling the lamp standard. A young lassie in holiday attire lying on her face, maybe hurrying home when she heard the uproar, but going too slow. For already on the brilliant white blouse, a purple patch of death had spread across the middle of the back. An old woman lying on the floor of her tenement room, alone, her blood seeping through the ceiling below. All of the goodly company of the dead who died for Ireland. Yes, so, have pity. Quiet, comrades, quiet. It was necessary that you should die for Ireland too. You didn't want to die, I know. You signed no proclamation. You invaded no building. You pulled no trigger, I know. But Ireland needed you all the same. And many more will die like that before Ireland can go free. They must put up with it. You will be unknown forever. You died without a word of praise. You will be buried without even a shadowy ceremony. No bugle will call your name. No gunshot will let loose brave echoes over your grave. No, you will not be numbered among the accepted slain. But listen, comrades, listen. Whitman will be there to meet you, and he will marshal you into the march past with the greater dead. And on the cornet he will play you a final shrill salute. Listen. There it goes.
Our thanks to Aidan for sharing those pieces with us. And in his last piece there, of course, he's reminding us of the death toll of the civilians. And we have further work to do on this, but we strongly believe that the figures are conservative, because we think that there are too long for people who are not listed in that figure. One, a priest who's buried in Cliff, who died as a result of wounds received, and another lady, Mrs. Walsh, in Newton Forbes graveyard, who died as a result, we think, of wounds during that week. But again, this is for the future. So again, thanks Aidan. Now Master Hunt, I always call him Master Hunt, which is of course a great epithet for anybody, because it's that wonderful craft of teaching, which so many of the participants in the Rising were involved in. We think of our own master Bannon of Killashew, national teacher. Joe has spent most of his all of his teaching career, I think, here in the county. We're privileged to have him there. His interests, of course, we know, are in other things, GA and quizzes, and latterly, of course, bridge. He's a renowned bridge player, and in the organisation of that as well, he's been very involved in the last few years. So we welcome Joe to us. Joe was very involved in the Historical Society for many years.
Thank you very much, Father. I'd say a certain Master Hunt's contribution will be much shorter than David's or Vera's, but nonetheless very sincere. I was asked simply to say something about Pádraig Pearse and the mother which he wrote. And this poem, the voice in this poem is the voice of Pearse's own mother. It is personal, and yet it speaks too for all those torn between grief and joy, failure and triumph. It's a beautiful poem, so sensitively written, to give some comfort to his mother on the death of her two sons, Pádraig and Willie. One line, "The generations shall remember them," certainly rings true in this year of remembrance. And we in Longford, in our generation, are certainly remembering them all throughout this year. The mother was written the night before his execution. I do not grudge them, Lord, I do not grudge my two strong sons that I have seen go out to break their strength and die, they and a few, in bloody protest for a glorious thing. They shall be spoken of among their people. The generations shall remember them and call them blessed. But I will speak their names to my own heart in the long nights, the little names that were familiar once round my dead heart. Lord, thou art hard on mothers, we suffer in their coming and their going. And though I grudge them not, I weary of the long sorrow, and yet I have my joy. My sons were faithful, and they fought.
Thanks, Joe, for that masterly rendition, and the emotion of it all. And one thinks of Pádraig Pearse that night, and really he just got caught up as well and executed, really, because of who he was related to. Pearse spoke here in Church Street Hall in, I think it was 1904. Later, of course, people, including some of the Longford participants, would have heard him in Bodenstow or in Glasnevin in 1915 when he gave the oration at the graveside of O'Donovan Rossa. Now we welcome another member of our committee, Pat Donnelly. Pat is going to complete the grieve of Ballinamuk. Pat's going to share a song with us. I'm not sure what the song is now, but he's a man of many talents, Pat, and many songs.
Thanks, Father Tom. I think it could be the wrong man you're talking about. This is a story about a young boy. And 1916, he was 14 years of age, and he had a yearning and an aching to get involved. He died, executed when he was 18, and I hope that I do justice to his memory. Kevin Barry. In Mountjoy Jail, one Monday morning, high upon a gallows tree, Kevin Barry gave his young life for the cause of liberty. Just a lad of 18 summers, and no one can deny, as he walked to death that morning, Barry held his head on high. Just before he reached the hangman in his dreary prison cell, British soldiers tortured Barry just because he would not tell the names of his brave comrades and other things they wish to know. Come, informer, or we'll kill you. Kevin Barry answered no. Standing proudly to attention as he bid his last farewell to his broken-hearted mother, whose grief no one could tell. For the cause he proudly cherished, this sad parting had to be. As he walked to death there smiling, that old Ireland might be free. Another martyr for old Ireland, another murder for the crown, whose ghastly deeds would kill the Irish, but will not quench their spirit down. Lads like Barry are no cowards, from the foe they will not fly. Lads like Barry will free Ireland, and for this she lived and died.
Thank you, Pat, for that spirited rendition of a well-known song from the Republican tradition. I now welcome Thomas Igo. Thomas from Richmond Forbes, who's going to sing a song he composed himself about Rosie Hackett. Now, Rosie Hackett, I personally don't know much about Rosie Hackett. I do know that she had a bridge named after her recently, and I suppose it highlights the fact of the contribution of people like her, many women who took part in the revolutionary period and who are getting a rather recognition at last for their contribution. So, Thomas Igo.
Just to say that I had the privilege on Saturday, my niece Janice Igo I gave the song for her to sing, and she performed it in Liberty Hall last Saturday at the Countess Markovich Society. And, so to say I was proud of you.
And on the bridge.
And afterwards she actually sang the song on the Rosie Hackett Bridge, which a big crowd got around the lawn. Rosanna Rosie Hackett, a Dubliner so true, born to the tenements on Bolton Street in 1892. Her father died when she was young, a barber shy but neat. Her mother remarried Patrick Gray, and they moved to Owen Abbey Street. She first worked as a packer in the local paper store, then got a job in Jacob's Biscuits as a messenger. 'Twas here with D. Larkin founded a right strong crew, the Irish Women's Workers' Union, thousands of members grew. 400 policemen to take 4 women down. 400 policemen in the name of the crown. 400 policemen to take 4 women down. 400 policemen in the name of the crown. Rosie lost her job in Jacobs for supporting workers' rights. The 1913 lockout, she stood by Larkin's plight. Joined the Irish Citizen Army when a clerk in Liberty Hall. Fought alongside Countess Markovich when the Easter Rising called, helping print the proclamation before the fighting got so fierce. She handed it to Conley, it was then read by Pearce, given orders to surrender, 10 days in Kilmainham jail. The loss of all her comrades made her determined not to fail. 400 policemen to take 4 women down. 400 policemen in the name of the crown. 400 policemen to take 4 women down. 400 policemen in the name of the crown. On Liberty Hall with her 3 best friends, the banner could be seen. James Conley, murdered May 12th, 1916. She nailed the doors and windows shut, and on the roof it sound. It'll take 400 policemen to take 4 women down. 400 policemen to take 4 women down. 400 policemen in the name of the crown. 400 policemen to take 4 women down. 400 policemen in the name of the crown. So when you cross the Liffey on the Rosie Hackett Bridge, think of those who gave their lives, of those who fought to live in an Ireland that is free and has rights for one and all. Remember Dublin's Rosie, for she answered Ireland's call. 400 policemen to take 4 women down. 400 policemen in the name of the crown. 400 policemen to take 4 women down. 400 policemen in the name of the crown. 400 policemen to take 4 women down.
I know we'd all be looking for an encore, Thomas. Only for we have many more pieces to go through. Thank you very much. And again, I certainly have learned a lot more about the great Rosie Hackett from your piece. I'm welcoming now a man from the Kingdom. He tells me he's from that very picturesque area, the glen overlooking St Finian's Bay between Portmagee and Ballinskellets. But he has made his home with us here in Longford, former principal of Stone Park National School, and he's been a member of the Longford County Commemorative Committee, working for the last year on the 1916 celebrations or commemorations here. And his particular interest really has been with the schools, and he's done wonderful work with the national schools in the county here on the whole, on not just on history, but particularly on the whole 1916. And he's going to recite a poem for us tonight, a piece tonight by Van Schleve Equino Aviv, written in 1907 by Corey Pierce, reflecting on the sadness of the image.
Now, when Martin said we're going to do a poetry evening, and straight away when you think of the poetry of 1916, you think of Pierce, and you think of MacDonagh and Joseph Mary Plum. But I was determined to link it in some way to Tom Clark, and I didn't bother going looking for a poem of Tom Clark's because I wouldn't know where to find it, and I wouldn't have the patience anyway to go looking for it. So then there was nothing on at Easter Sunday here, or if there was, Mary, I forgot about it, but what my brother said to me, where are you going for Easter Sunday? He's down in Kerry. And I said, sure, I'll go down if you're doing anything. Give him a bit of a rub, because he knew we were very busy up here. Of course we're doing things, he said. On Saturday we're going to Ballykissan, and it's going to be raining, so bring your coat. And on Sunday he said we'll walk from Barnasrade, which is the old name from Carsabine, to the Republican plot over the water. And when we were going up in the car to Ballykissan, we were reminiscing about 50 years ago. I was in 5th class and he was in 6th class, and we were saying, can you remember, did they do anything? And he said, well, I remember going for the cows and saying Irishmen and Irish women in the name of God and rattling that off. But then we thought of a poem that Micheál Cronin, Michael Cronin, our teacher, did with us, and we used to call it Broner and Moss. They were the first couple of words in the poem. And we started saying it, and to my shame I never taught it any 6th class when I was in Stone Park. They'd be well fit for it, but it just never dawned on me. But we got 2 or 3 verses done, and then I said, that's what I'll do now. And it's about the sadness of death, and I'm going to dedicate it to Kathleen Clark, Tom Clark's wife, and to Tom Clark himself. But I have to apologise to her first, because she was kind of annoyed with the Pierces after the rising, because Padraig Pierce was getting a lot more credit for the rising, she felt, than her husband Tom Clark. But the only one to blame for that was Tom Clark himself, because he was in the background. And when you think of the abolition of slavery, you think of Lincoln. When you think of South Africa, you think of Mandela. When you think of the civil rights in America, you think of Martin Luther King. And in India, it's Gandhi. And we all know who pushed it over the line in 1922. It was Michael Collins. But when we think about the rising, we often ask each other, who was the most important? And for me personally, there would be no rising without Tom Clark. He was the sleeper from 1904 right up, waiting for the chance. He had to keep a low profile because he had spent 15 years in jail as a Fenian, and he was at the top of O'Connell Street with a shop, and there's many pictures of him stooped, and he looking out and looking left and looking right, and he going back in, and they only waiting for him to make the move. But Sean McDermott was his eyes and ears. He was the man that was moving about, and believe it or not, McDermott almost escaped execution because they weren't sure if he was a leader until some guy spotted him. But there was an interview in 1966 by Tim Pat Coogan with Kathleen Clark, where she talked about the days after the rising, and she said she was a sister of Ned Daly, and it was in the forecourts with the Longford contingent, the McGuinness and Company, and she said she sent the children home to Limerick. They had 4 children because of the week that was in it, and then she was sent for the night before he died, and she said, I knew that wasn't good news. And she talked about walking back home to Fairview where she lived, and at the time she was pregnant with her 5th child, and in the following week she lost her husband, her brother, and she lost her unborn child. So that's why I want to dedicate the sadness of death to her. And we've all experienced that. So it's called Ban Slave Queen Elvic. Now I'll read it in English after, just in case that your Irish might be a bit rusty, but you can, even if you don't know the words, you can hear the sadness in Pierce's voice. Broner and Moss, she dove macrisha, Dúdig McGraw, Stog me Cleta, Gun Corrigan Conponic Fee and Mahisha, ach an léon sean láras mé a cuine. I gháil na sléite dom trám hóna, the laur na hen na hen lum go brom. The laur an leist bín is an crotat glóra, ag fasnéis dom, gur éag na stof. The gléig mé artas de blór near chulas, the glé mé ríis is fragran í vus. The fóg mé de véal, is a hían ar a vúre, och is fúri de labba, sa chilín úigna. Is a úigiód glas in a wil melanam, a úigkul vigios tú a labba. Na vanach dort, is na mílte banat, and na fód of glasa, tás cium na fata. Brónar an más ní féidir é héna, lagan sé úr agus crín le chéile. Is a vacin bála, is é ma chésa, the cholan chayev, veg déanamh crackle. A woman of the mountains keens her son. The sadness of death, it has blackened my heart. It has snatched my love and left me desolate, without friend or companion under the roof of my house, but this sorrow in the midst of me and I keening. As I walked the mountain in the evening, the birds spoke to me sorrowfully, the sweet snipe and the voiceful curlew, telling me that my darling was dead. I called to you, and a voice I heard not. I called again, and I got no answer. I kissed your mouth, and God, it was cold. Cold as your bed in the lonely churchyard. O green solid grave in which my child lies, little narrow grave, since you are his bed. My blessing on you, and thousands of blessing on the green sods that are over my treasure. The sadness of death, it cannot be denied. It lays low, young and old together. And a gentle little son, what tortures me is that your fair body should be making clay. Now, just one last thing. When I was leaving about tonight, I was over with Mrs. Farr, my mother-in-law. She's 93, and she says, "Where are you off to now?" And I says, "I'm going down to the library to say a poem." And she says, "What is it?" And I said, "Do you know Brother and Moss?" "Of course I do," she said. And she rattled off 3 verses of it before she drew breath. She says, "Paddy Murray taught us that, and Peter's well, and I bet you won't be as good as that," she said.
Well done, Aidan. Thanks very much. What was it I read there one time? Behind every successful man is a surprised mother-in-law. Anyway, she need not be surprised anymore. That's wonderful. Now, number 9, we're moving nicely through the whole show this evening. 2 people who have endeared themselves very much to our community here in Longford. I know Aidan, of course, has Longford connections, strong Longford connections, obviously. But they have made their home with us in Clonbalt over the last few years, and they have contributed to certainly very much to the cultural life of our town, of our community, and indeed the historical life as well. So we welcome Aidan and Joyce tonight, who are going to present 3 pieces to us. They're there to explain themselves what they're going to do.
Nuair hánas an seánach ní rá sa súl an leis an testbantas brát a gine se. Nach chuil se go hála. Agus tá annach go gáidechas an dul do Miss Crawford an se leis na charcoals an se. Bríd, Cassidy, brin na dearach an se, I tá se go hála. Agus an testbantas sa le Idel Fallon. Agus Gary Robinson a churlaí chéile Anjab go agus Tracy and Freshen le winter na leabhna a bhíonn chuntosaigh go gánaí leis na rudaí se. Sin Mary agus Martin agus Mailead agus an fuirin a lí le leabhna. So búla basta a bhí. Agus man caiinfid táirc mar Pirish smíní mid gón ar an mór árán na líne sin óráid siad bheith bhile ar nó bhí annachcuid árán ar. One of the things that amazes one when they do any kind of research at all or 1916 in that whole period, is the efflorescence of the muse and poetry and song. It is extraordinary. Now, I know and you know about Sean O'Casey and his plays, but he was writing ballads for the New Time and publishing them in little booklets and in later volumes and so on. Even the O'Reilly had written a poem, and it's in a collection by a Longford man who has contributed enormously to the literature of that period. You know who I'm talking about, Paul McCullum. 4 volumes of his that he either edited or made a major contribution to came out 1913 to 1916. The ballads of the broadsides publication he talked about, and he had also the poems and songs of the Revolution. Visit him again. Martin has the books upstairs in the archives, and it's amazing what he has accumulated and published for us. So that's Pádraig Colum. Again, the O'Reilly, I mentioned him. Imagine my own surprise when some years ago I was invited, Joyce and I were invited by a former secretary of Sean McBride's up to her little holiday home up in the Wicklow Mountains. We'd met at the Merriman Summer School and we helped her out with accommodation, I remember. And she introduced us to whom? The son of the O'Reilly, whose wife was...
From Ruski.
Huh?
From Ruski.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, Bridget Klein, I met her.
Well, whoever it was, whichever son it was, the wife was Elgin Barry, the sister of Kevin Barry.
Oh yeah. Another brother married Bridget Klein from Ruski, and I met their son Prince.
Tom said we're learning tonight. We're all learning tonight. It is quite remarkable, and we're probably the night isn't over yet. So Sean O'Casey, he wrote a great many of these ballads, and one of them that I have a great fondness for. I haven't memorised it, but in any case, I'll present it to you as best I can. I may sing a bit and talk a bit. The Grand Old Dame Britannia. They love the name Britannia because it was so fixed in their minds of this ruling monarch or this president of Britain over Ireland. And it was written, of course, against the enlistment and what the British were doing to enlist men for the war, because so many of them had been killed, including the Irish, and the Irish volunteers under Redmond had gone out. Of course, they were expecting Home Rule to follow, but of course Casey, in his very vitriolic way, had other ideas about that. Johnny Redmond. Of course, Redmond, so many different stories about him and how, in fact, he isn't given fair treatment in a way. Well, he certainly put great trust in the Dame Britannia, and a lot of the volunteers that stayed behind to come out in 1916 didn't share his good faith in what Britain would do. He refers to poor little Belgium in the song because this was the fight or the war to free the small nations, and Belgium, of course, was overrun by the Germans. He refers to the rebels shouting 67 and Bachelor's War, referring to the Fenian uprising of 1867, and Bachelor's War, when the Hoth gun running passed through the city and 4 people were killed by a Scottish regiment that some of the young lads around had started throwing stones at. The Dardanelles, referring to the fact that things went badly for the British forces there, including, of course, Irish regiments. And finally, he refers to the Hibernian Academy, one of the buildings that was laid to dust and ashes in Dublin in 1916 with the Hibernian Academy. So if I can see if I can get the verse. You may recognise it. "Oh, Ireland, I'm so proud of you," says the grand old Dame Britannia, "and poor little Belgium, you've proved true," says the grand old Dame Britannia. "Close your ears to the Sinn Féin lies, for you know each Gael for England dies, and you'll have Home Rule 'neath a clear blue sky," says the grand old Dame Britannia. "Oh, Johnny Redmond, he's the boy," says the grand old Dame Britannia. He's Ireland's pride and England's joy, says the grand old Dame Britannia. Rebels through the country stalk, shouting 67 and bachelor's walk. Did you ever hear such foolish talk, says the grand old Dame Britannia. Well, I met today with Inspector Quinn, says the grand old Dame Britannia. He told me straight that we're sure to win, says the grand old Dame Britannia. What's the news? The newsboy yells. What's the news? The papers tells. A British retreat from the Dardanelles, says the grand old Dame Britannia. You'll need £1 or 2 from me, says the grand old Dame Britannia. For your old Hibernian Academy, says the grand old Dame Britannia. But you know we've got the Huns to quell, so we need our money for shot and shell. So your artists, they can go to hell, says the grand old Dame Britannia. Now scholars, hurlers, saints and bards, says the grand old Dame Britannia. Come along and join the Irish Guards, says the grand old Dame Britannia. Every man who treads on the German's feet, he'll get a parcel tied up neat, a home rule badge and a winding sheet, says the grand old Dame Britannia. Joyce, you have a poem. A poem.
Just a few days ago, I asked Aidan what kind of poem am I going to say regarding 1916. Excuse me. And he introduced me to a author, writer of novels, Brian Moore. Do you know of him? Yes. He certainly was prolific. His mother was from Donegal, a McFadden, and he came from Belfast, where his father was from. His uncle was Owen McNeill. I think Google is just a wonderful way of finding out information.
And somebody mentioned, by the way, Joyce, Martin, I think you said when we mentioned that his mother, that his uncle was McNeill, and then Moore MacDougall, of course, grandson.
Yeah.
So that's maybe Brian Moore. That's where the Moore comes in. Fairly safe assumption, isn't it? Yeah.
But he seemed to have written some, well, I counted the number of books, at least 25 books. They were novels. Many of them were put into films. One is The Lonely Passion of Judith Hearn, The Luck of Ginger Coffee, and I Am Mary Brown. They are 3 popular ones. So I came to the conclusion that he did like women. He wrote about them. Of course, Brian moved to Canada. So he became a Canadian citizen, so he was an Irish Canadian. So I come from Canada and I moved to Ireland, so I'm a Canadian Irishman. Anyway, the poem I'd like to read is called Invisible Women. I can't say they're too invisible as I look around here, but certainly they did play their role, and it's quite a nice poem, I think. Invisible Women by Brian Moore. The singer sings a rebel song, and everybody sings along. Just one thing I'll never understand. Every damn rebel seems to be a man. For he sings of the bold Fenian men and the boys of the old brigade. What about the women who stood there too when history was made? Ireland, Mother Ireland, with your freedom-loving sons, did your daughters run and hide at the sound of guns? Or did they have some part in the fight? And why does everybody try to keep them out of sight? For they sing of the men of the West and the boys of Wexford too. Were there no women living round those parts? Tell me, what did they do?
This next song, or last song, and we'll finish with it, is one by Father Carney, who's been mentioned here this evening. Father who wrote the national anthem, Around Livian, the Soldier's Song, and many other songs, the Tricoloured Ribbon, Down by the Liffey Side. These are songs in all our repertoires. Each very cheekily borrowed the Tricoloured Ribbon from a very popular old English song, which we were good at that. We borrowed the English language and improved it enormously. Not least here in Longford, of course. We did our own thing with it. Padder's sister was Kathleen Bean, who we knew. I got to know the Bean family quite well. I never met Brendan or Dominic, but Sean and the others. And the half-brother Rory Furlong. Mrs. Carney, Kathleen Bean, was married to John Furlong, and he was in Boland's Mills in 1916. She applied when he died from the flu in 1918, and she later applied for pension, not pension, because of her husband's dependency thing. She was refused because she had already married again and was not there for a dependent. Rory later on applied and got a 1916 medal posthumously awarded to his father, John Furlong, Rory Furlong. Rory's name, by the way, I never knew that until recently, was Roger Casement Furlong. Called him Rory. He was born, I think, 1917, and I got to know. I drove him home from his second honeymoon. His first wife died, and I brought him home to his house in Dublin, and it was laughter and stories all the way. A true being Furlong. These great people, these Carneys. But Whitefall the Diddle, of course, just simply to say, it refers to things you all know. You'll hear Belnabui and Peter's Hill. Belnabui is the Battle of the Yellow Ford, where the O'Neills and the O'Donnells jointly defeated the English. It was 1598. And then Peter's Hill, Pieters, is a battle in the Boer War. Fighting in the British side, where whom? The Connaught Rangers, the Dublin Fusiliers, and the Enniskillen Fusiliers. The Irish, the Dardanelles dying for Britain. This is the extraordinary, fascinating story that we're dealing with in this anniversary. How interesting it is. Now, Whitefall the Diddle. It has the line, Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day. There are some great singers here. So Pat, I'm depending on you, and Aidan, and the rest of you. Try joining it. I'll sing you a song of peace and love to the land that knows. No, sorry. So what's the tune?
We've sung for a while.
No, so
I'll sing you a song of peace and love.
that's it. I'll sing you a song of peace and love. Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day, to the land that reigns all lands above. Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day, may peace and plenty be her share, who kept our homes from want and care. Oh, God bless England is our prayer. Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day, Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day. So we say, hey hooray! Come and listen while we pray. Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day. When we were savage, fierce and wild, Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day. She came as a mother to her child, Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day. She gently raised us from the slime and kept our hands from hellish crime, and sent us to heaven in her own good time. Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day, Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day. So we say, hooray! Come and listen while we pray. Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day. Our fathers oft were naughty boys. Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day. Pikes and guns are dangerous toys. Whitefall the Diddle on the Dido Day. At Belnabui and Peter's Hill, We made poor England cry her fill, but old Britannia loves us still. Whack for the diddle on the Dido Day, whack for the diddle on the Dido Day. So we say, hip hooray, come and listen while we pray. Whack for the diddle on the Dido Day. Now Irishmen forget the past, whack for the diddle on the Dido Day, and think of the day that's coming fast. Whack for the diddle on the Dido Day, when we shall all be civilized, neat and clean and well advised. Oh, won't Mother England be surprised? Whack for the diddle on the Dido Day, whack for the diddle on the Dido Day. So we say, hip hooray, come and listen while we pray. Whack for the diddle on the Dido Day.
I enjoyed that, was just wonderful. And again, showing the great complexities of history and, you know, the humour of it all at times too. You know, it's just wonderful. Thank you both. And Aidan mentioned there the pictures done beautifully, which were launched here in the exhibition last Friday. Breach Cassidy and Doris Crawford. And of course, Joyce, you mentioned the women involved, and 5 of the 15 are women. You know, Rose McGuinness and her cousin Bridget Lyons Thornton, the 2 sisters Ailish and Anya Nerean, and Miss Doyle. Now we don't know her first name yet because there are a few Doyle sisters and we're a little bit confused about which of them it is. Anyway, we'll move on. So we welcome those of you who were there at the opening of the Remembrance Garden in Great Water Street on Saturday. Will not forget the wonderful Aoife Mulligan. Aoife is just off stage here. So we welcome you, Aoife, and you're going to sing 2 songs for us tonight.
So I'm going to sing 2 songs. The first song is called More Like Shore. While it's not directly related to 1916, I think it's quite appropriate because it's about love and sacrifice and a soldier going off to war. So I'm just going to sing it. Hills and dales and cloudy winds that lie near the moorland shore, or vines that blow by the borderlands roam. Will I ever see often I play the guitar at this one. I think it's better without anything. So. Where, oh, where is our James Conley? Oh, where is that gallant man? He's gone to organize the union, that working men, they might yet be free. Then who will lead the van? Then who will lead the van? Who but our James Conley, the hero of the working man? Oh, where's the citizen army? Oh, where is that gallant band? They have gone to join the great rebellion, that working men, they might yet be free. Who'll carry high the burning flag? Who'll carry high the burning flag? Who but our James Conley could carry high the burning flag? They carried him up to the jail. They carried him up to the jail, and they shot him down on a bright May morning, and laid him quickly in his grave. Who mourns the death of this brave man? Who mourns the death of this brave man? Oh, bury me down in yon green garden, with Union men on every side. So they carried him down in yon green garden, with Union men on every side. They swore they would form a mighty union, that James Conley's name may be filled with pride. Oh, where is our James Conley? Oh, where is that gallant man? He's gone to organize the union, that working men, they might yet be free. Thank you.
There's somebody we're going to be hearing a lot more from in years to come, I think. Thank you very much, Ethan. Now we're coming to the penultimate presentation here tonight. We have, I don't know much about this now. We have Martina Cooney. Martina is here, who's going to read a poem for us. She'll probably tell us first of all what the origin of it is.
Well, it's basically a synopsis on the Easter Rising, and it's called Easter Monday 1916. and it's just a synopsis on what happened. And actually, I've written here that Thomas Clark announced the proclamation, but there has been an ongoing debate in our house as to who announced it. Some they say Pádraig Pearse announced it in Irish and Thomas Clark announced it in English. So I've written what I've written, so I'm just going to recite it, okay? On Easter Monday 1916, a Fenian dream awoke. A gallant band of volunteers now will have their spoke. 3 men from the Citizen Army and the IRB, who came at last to take control and set our nation free. A colony provoked and ruled by the gun, where people lived in terror and many on the run. On Sackville Street, 3 men marched out to raise the tricolour high, to read the words that they composed, a dare that cost their lives. First in uniform was young Master Pearse. Alongside him stood MacDonald, a man of words quite scarce. And Thomas Clark the Fenian, and veteran of them all, announced the proclamation while stood in City's Hall. Alas, the news to Whitehall reached, a city in revolt. A regiment from Sherwood sent, and raged like a thunderbolt. Their army marched to Mount Street Bridge, a swagger through their stride. But the marksmen from the IRB laid them side by side. Reality struck once again, the crown up their offence. With storm and shield and gun smoke, down the Sackville buildings went. And from the burning rubble, the rebels burrowed through. Under stone and mortar they did crawl, until they reached the Moore Street crew. From the massacre and dust, Rosie Hackett did emerge. Alas, the white flag she displayed read the ceasefire words. Out came our rebels, hands on heads. They knew their efforts failed. To Kilmainham our men were marched, all at Gunpoint jail. Our gallant men now wait their fate, our 16 men gone down. A mournful cry for Ireland, at the fines to the crown. But little did Westminster know, our rebels would rebound, and 6 years on their army left from every southern town. If our men knew their dream came true, their souls go marching all. For our freedom, their blood was marked on old Kilmainham wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina, for sharing that with us. Now, our final piece tonight is from Adam Farrell. We've heard Adam on a couple of occasions at the launch of the programme last November. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, Adam, but I heard about it. And Adam is a member of Corlin and Oak. The young people, many of whom you've seen them in the garden last Saturday, each of them holding a placard from representing one of the 15 Longford people, and they were also there on Sunday in the barracks. And Adam is going to reflect, his piece will reflect on the rising from a young person's perspective, and will also, I think, bridge that 100-year gap and give us a vision for the future. So, Adam Farrell.
Good evening, everyone. As has been said, my name is Adam. I'm a member of Longford Corlin and Oak, and I'm from Lanesborough. Before I speak anything, first thing I'd like to do is thank Eamon wholeheartedly for all the work he's done with Corla coming up to the events at the weekend and everything he's helped us with throughout the year. And he's been a real help, so thank you very much. Now, the speech I was announced with it was titled Believe in Hope. And it's a speech I've given twice before, and if that's okay with Eamon, I also wrote another speech during this year. During the Proclamation Day, which all the schools, secondary schools and primary schools, celebrated, I was asked to make a speech there, and I wrote a speech for that, which I haven't presented before. So if that's okay with everyone, that's the speech I would like to make today. So this one, it was for Proclamation Day, and it talks about the leaders of the rising, and also, I suppose, that question that's been asked so much, would the leaders of the rising agree or be happy with the world we have today? But it also kind of tries to answer that from my perspective too. So, The leaders of the 1916 Easter Rising were a very different type of people 100 years ago. There were some of the very few during that time who were not afraid of opinion. When society bore down upon those who were weak, they defended them. When society halted those who would speak out, they became their voice. And when society persecuted people for believing in change, they strove to change society. They showed the people of Ireland that they didn't have to stand for the lives they were being forced to live, and instilled into their hearts a lust for freedom and for rightfulness. These revolutionaries spoke revolution before it was popular. They talked equality and fairness during a time when there was none. And they believed in the Irish people's right to freedom before the Irish people themselves did. These leaders stood up for what they believed in, for the Ireland that should be, not the Ireland that was. And they would not allow any more of our people to endure the suffering and injustice being forced upon them. They had a true and noble belief, a belief in our people and a belief in our country. And in a brave and heroic stand, they sacrificed themselves for us, to allow us and Ireland's future children to live in the country which they envisioned. A country not of dictatorship or war. A country not of mistreatment or discrimination, but a country of fairness and freedom. A country where every single person could live as an equal. And before they valiantly gave up their lives, they channeled their united beliefs into one single vessel, to be eternally tied with the evolution of our country. Public Nahéireann, the proclamation of the Irish Republic. They did this so that the ideals that they fought for would never die nor ever be forgotten. So that in their place, 100 years later, someone or something would be able to remind us of the country they wanted Ireland to be. The leaders of the Rising believed in equality for all. They believed in freedom and liberty for all. They believed in self-determination for all, in the right of every person to choose their own destiny. They believed in equal opportunity for all. They believed in happiness and prosperity for all. And they believed in unity, in the ability of a country united and together. The leaders of the 1916 Easter Rising had a dream, and the proclamation by which they harnessed it leaves us both as a people and as a country something to aspire to. We may never achieve the perfect country. We may never fulfill every ideal and hope they left for us. But we can keep trying, keep believing, keep looking towards a better future. And that's what I believe the leaders of the 1916 Easter Rising would have wanted. Therefore today, we not only commemorate the proclamation of the Irish Republic, but the incredible visionaries whose ideals shaped and continue to shape the world that we live in today. Thank you.